back in this thing. So the page for the day out of my book was Choose Time. And the story it gave was of Albert Einstein. So Albert Einstein, surprisingly enough, wasn't like top of his class when he graduated college. He didn't wow most of the people that he was in school with. But right after college, he had to get a job. Most of the jobs that he was applying for were very time consuming. They eat up a lot of his hours that are very limited for the day. And Einstein was a very deep thinker. He already had a lot of thought experiments going on during his college years that he wanted to expand upon, but he knew that a lot of the jobs that he was applying for would eat up all that valuable time. So he ended up finding a job at a patent office, and his duty there would to be a position of reviewing all the patent applications that were coming in. And a lot of this appealed to him because it required a lot of thinking as to what it was these people were applying for in terms of their patents and their ideas. And it was like the little thought experiments that he used to like to do on his own anyways. So it said he became so good at this job, he would finish a whole day's work within 2 to 3 hours, which would leave him the rest of the day to be able to work on his own experiments and his own thoughts and ideas and expand upon them. So instead of being desperate for money and choosing a job that didn't fit him, he bided his time, and he waited and found the perfect job that would allow him to use and maximize his time to the fullest. And that's, I think, what we all should be doing when it comes to our lives. You know, this 8-hour day, 9 to 5, if not more, because I sure as heck was working easily 10-hour days. You know, and back in the day when I was working at a rescue or volunteering for free, I wasn't even getting paid. I would spend the whole day there. But the difference with that is that was my passion. I could spend the whole day could go away, and I would be, you know, just taking care of the dogs, interacting with the people. Later, teaching them what I had come to learn about dogs in terms of my training when it comes to the psychological aspect of canines. So that was, for me, valuable use of my time. But yeah, that's all of us should be doing, that is looking for ways to maximize the limited time we have here on this plane of existence. Yep. So that's why I make videos like these. I think all these thoughts are interesting to me, and if they can help somebody out there, you know, this might be basic information for people that most people have learned, but there's a lot of younger people that maybe haven't thought of these things. You know, maybe they've been focused on the wrong things, and that they happen to come across this. And then maybe this small amounts of information I dispense might be helpful if they're willing to give it a listen. Because obviously the video is not of the highest quality, and I know the audio is not the best right now either, but some of this can help some people. That's why I do this. It's helpful for me. That's why I like this book. I like all of Robert Greene's stuff. 48 Laws of Power was a really good book. Mastery, very good book. The Laws of Human Nature, The Art of Seduction, The 33 Strategies of War. All these books are very, very useful in terms of how to approach different aspects of life. And today, the aspect was time. So like at the job I work at, on a production line, they do time trials. You know, every operation has an average amount of time that it'll take for a proficient operator to complete that task. So they know about how much it takes for a device to go from beginning to end, full length of the line. Excuse me. And that's for, you want to maintain profitability, so you want to be efficient, and efficiency equates less time under manufacturing equals more devices being produced, which equates to, a lower bar for output in terms of the money it takes to build this device. A lot goes into a business. You can't make something for free. It takes money to make money, that's what they say, right? So that's what I'm gonna go do now. Pretty chilly out here. Turn my heater on. Let's open this gate so we could go. Try to see if there was any headlines or news I could talk about on the way there, but didn't seem to be much. They're throwing a bunch of nonsense at me that I don't really care to talk about. I think I have to start to thin out the amount of people or accounts that I follow, so I get more relatively interesting information for me to maybe talk about on the way. But yeah, time is the one thing that you spend that you will never get back. You can spend everything else. You can spend your money, your energy, resources, all those things can be reaccumulated. But once you spend time, that time is gone for good. So be careful what it is that you're spending time on. Be careful who it is you're spending time with. I think that second one's a very overlooked aspect of time management. Who are you spending your time around, and how are they affecting you? How much of who they are is seeping into your character? Personally, I think it's better to spend time around people who are out of your league in a good way. They've accomplished more, they know more, they're far more educated than you, they're far more successful than you. That way, your bar of excellence is lifted up. If you are the most accomplished person in your friend group, you need to leave that friend group, because all those people can do is bring you down. Even though you may be having a good effect on them, they cannot have a good effect on you. It doesn't work that way. I think that's the saying. If you're the smartest person in the room, get out of that room. You need to get out of that room and find a room with people who are much smarter than you, that can only level you up. And that's the goal. You must constantly be looking to level up in every way. Mentally, physically, and spiritually. Level up. And that's something you should be spending time doing. Spend time looking for ways to improve yourself in those three key areas: mental, physical, and spiritual. I think the last one should be the first. Spiritual, mental, and then physical. I think that's the order. Those three in that order. Because if you work on the first, then the second will automatically fall into place. And if you work on those first two, then the third will come with it. Right? It's very important, the order that you put things in. I learned that when I was training to learn about dogs. So the way I was taught to engage a dog in terms of getting its attention, or I guess that's the best way to put it, getting its attention, is dogs engage the world primarily through their senses, right? And their most sensitive sense is their nose. Their sense of smell is the most powerful sense they have. So if you want to get a dog's attention, it goes nose first, then the eyes, then the ears. The reason being, number one, again, their nose is their most strongest sense. Then their most sensitive sense. Second is their eyes, their eyesight, and then their ears. right? Like if they're out in the wild, animals tend to smell a predator first. They may hear it because they can't see it, so that may come second sometimes. But primarily it's the eyes that catch your attention. That's why animals have eyes. Not all of them, but a good portion of animals have eyes more to the sides of their head rather than in the front like humans. They're more apart, which gives them a wider field of vision. Because again, going back to time, like humans, our eyes are so forward facing. Our peripheral vision isn't very sensitive. You actually have to work on that. The truck was flashing its lights. I don't know why. You actually have to work on using your peripheral vision in order for it to become a little bit more sensitive, or for you to even start to see the things that are in it faster. You know, the amount of time it takes to turn your head and look in different directions, that small amount of time could, in critical situations, could mean life or death. So when it came to the design of animals, God gave them that ability a little bit more readily by placing their eyes a little bit further apart or a little bit more on opposing sides of the skull. And that's because of the predatory nature of the wild. See, humans prey on each other in different ways. We're a little more psychological when it comes to the way we hunt in terms of people. What do I mean by that, hunting people? How can I describe this? Well, for the psychologically manipulative, the sociopaths of the world, they look for victims to prey upon in terms of manipulation. And all those clues that they catch upon, it's all psychological. They're victims. They have to interact with them in order to get a feel for whether or not they can prey upon them. I should actually read a book on sociopaths. It's kind of interesting the way that mindset works. I mean, how does one develop into that? That doesn't happen in the natural animal world. Outside of humans, and there's such thing as a dog that's a sociopath. And they may have behavioral issues because they weren't brought up right. And maybe that's how a sociopath develops. Just weren't brought up right. I don't know. Again, I should probably read a book. That'd probably be interesting. The psychology of sociopaths. A lot of the books I read, they focus on the more organized minded of the world. The Rockefellers or the Carnegies, or like the 33 Strategies of War. A lot of military people are analyzed. When it comes to mastery, it's people like who the great inventors of the world, or the people that just have excelled in their field. But sociopathy doesn't tend to calculate too often into those. Even though I think, if I remember correctly, sociopaths tend to have a very high IQ. For whatever reason. They just, on the personality side, there seems to be a bit of a flaw where they've applied their intelligence in a very sinister way, which is a shame. Your intelligence is like anything else. It's just a tool. You can misuse any tool. So there's that. So what else is going on? I don't know. Can't really think of much this morning. So there might be a lot of dead air in this video as I sit and think. In the future, hopefully I'll take the time. See, again, going back to time. I'll take the valuable time to maybe write out some bullet points throughout the day for me to go over before I push record. That might be helpful. Everything is time. Everything is time. And everybody should be looking to maximize the moment. Get the most out of it that you can. Even if it's a small conversation with a person, or maybe if it comes to your job and the tasks that you're doing, you know, instead of just going through the motions, analyze them a bit, see if you can figure out a way to improve upon them. Again, when it comes to my job, there's not a lot of wiggle room for experimentation. That's an engineer's job, which is above my pay grade at the moment. That's why I like the Apple used to have a slogan that I went with for a while. I think it was Apple, and the slogan was "Think Different." You know, every day the whole education system is built around, for the most part, getting everybody to think the same, right? Even most of the mass media, news outlets, they mostly all report the same things. Maybe they'll have a different take on it because one's more left-leaning or one's more right-leaning, but for the most part, they're reporting the same information. They're just giving you a little bit of a different spin because they know there's really only two avenues of thinking when it comes to either you're liberal or conservative or whatever. Pretty tired. I'm doing all right. But yeah, thinking different's always good. You just don't want to be a copy of a copy. I don't know if you've ever used a copy machine, but if you don't have the original and you're making copies of a copy, maybe your copy is like 3 generations down, those copies are coming out terrible. That kind of seems like that's what's happening with humanity right now. All the originals have passed. So now we just have, what, 4th and 5th generation copies. If that's just a complete guess on the number. But like, since society's become so advanced in terms of its development, you know, the school system hasn't changed in how long? And then there's college, but people aren't taught to, I'm not going to say that, that's a blanket statement. I think, let's put it that way, in my opinion, I don't think the average person is really taught to look at themselves in a way that analyzes their strengths. You kind of go to a school that's very general, teachers just going through the motions. You know, the subjects are varied, but there's no, you know, critical thinking or unique ideas or perspectives being dispensed in terms of how history is taught, or, you know, how mathematics is taught, or, you know, some of those things, especially math, seems very static. There's not a lot of, you know, this is just the way it is. But in terms of, you know, I'm sure everything can be improved upon. It's just those creative thinkers are very rare these days. You know, when's the last time anybody's really looked at math and go, wait, you know, maybe we should rethink how we approach this? You know, it seems to be working so well. You know, math is the reason I have this little camera going, and math is the reason this car is driving, and, you know, it seemed to work this well this far. Maybe we shouldn't tinker with it. I bet there's a better way to do all this. And that's what's really keeping us from progressing to the next level of human development. Is our own willingness to question the status quo. Especially with the hard sciences. Nobody wants to be the one to step out of line and question. That's all I have is questions. I don't profess to have very many answers. First of all, I wake up every day questioning what this is. That's why the first thing I say when this camera goes on is, all right, here I am again in this thing. Whatever this thing is, people tend to call it life. They've minimized this whole experience down to a 4-letter word. Oh, it's just life. What did you just say? But yeah. I heard someone say if there is a God, that he's a mathematician. I believe there's a God. But since all the greatest discoveries in all the hardest sciences incorporate math of some sort, you know, the Fibonacci sequence is all mathematical, but it seems to be everywhere. It seems like the language of God is mathematical. Think of it, even in Hebrew, I think the characters that make up the language of Hebrew have numbers assigned to each letter. That's where gematria comes in. You know, it's if you took the English alphabet and assigned, what is there, 27 letters in the English alphabet, I believe. Could be wrong, but it's somewhere around 27 letters in the English alphabet. I'm not going to count them all now, but you get the idea. So you start with A, and A you assign the letter 1, B is 2, C is 3. That's would be the English version of gematria. And this is where you get into numerology and all kinds of interesting stuff. But you know, there's that. There could be some validity to that, but that tends to be sidelined, like, oh, that's just, you know, woo-woo, superstitious stuff. It doesn't really hold up. I don't think we've even really delved into that hard enough to even be able to make that statement with any kind of certainty. Since, you know, the importance of it is diminished so often. Who knows? But yeah, time. It takes me roughly 30-something minutes to get to work. That's why I'm not trying to waste any time when it comes to the amount of things I talk about on these videos. I'm just trying to rant for as long as I can. And I'm trying to make as much sense as I can as I rant. I've said it before, it's really what I'm just doing with these videos is I'm practicing and strengthening my rant muscle. I really should be jotting down bullet point topics to cover. Things that I see during the day. Maybe I'll do that today. As I'm at work, if I happen to think of something or see something that prods an idea in my mind, jot it down. And maybe, excuse me, maybe I'll start making videos on the way home too. That'll give me a good solid hour of content for the day. Half an hour on the way to work, half an hour on the way home. Certainly the video will be better on the way home because there will be better light. And sometimes there's traffic, so maybe it'll even be a longer video. Who knows? But yeah, time. Yeah, time is not on your side. There's a song that says that. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. It is not. Time does not wait for you. it ticks by, whether you want it to or not. You can't push the pause button on life and say, wait, hold on, I don't want to waste this time, let me just pause real quick. I guess metaphorically that could be true. If you're taking a moment to deeply observe something, you pause the time that you're giving to everything else to focus on what it is you want to focus on. So in that regard, time is on your side, I guess you could say. Like if you really want to master a task, going back to the apprentice master relationship, if you want to become an apprentice to anybody, you are literally putting everything else on hold. You're pushing the pause button on everything else so you can focus all your time on this. And in that regard, you do have control over time. You control time with your focus. Right? Or you control the use of that time. That's a better way to put it. You control how that time is used by the quality of your focus. And that certainly isn't being helped by social media and everybody's just scrolling endlessly from image to image and from account to account, never really stopping and giving any kind of quality time to an idea or a thought that might be conjured up by whatever post they just saw. So I did that real quick, but I didn't want to waste any time doing that because I could go on forever, and all these accounts that I looked at was just a bunch of nonsense, which made me rethink the whole amount of people I'm following. But yeah, time. Even the time it takes to get to a physical place, right? Like from me, my house to work, roughly 30 minutes, probably a little more, just right around there. And that calculation is the physical distance times my velocity. Now if we're taking into account, let's say, like the time it takes to become a master at a skill, I guess that calculation would be, how would we calculate that? Like somebody came up with a 10,000 hour mark for reaching excellence. I guess it's the time actually has to equate into this. The time, the quality of focus, and the intensity of the energy put into the task. Something like that would equate the time it takes to become a master at anything. Right? The intensity of focus multiplied by the amount of time spent practicing. Right? Because if you're only just kind of half focusing because you got a lot of things in your mind, you could spend the same amount of time doing the task, but you're not going to get the same thing out of it. So I think that has something to do with it, is your intensity of focus, right? And it has to be a willingness to focus. Like if it's voluntary, it's even better. Because if you're being forced to focus on something that you're not even really interested in, again, you could be spending a good amount of time on it, but since your interest isn't there, right, the quality of the focus isn't right. It's not calibrated correctly for you to get the most out of it. That definitely has something to do with it, the quality of your focus. You have to be interested in the task. Like with me at work, it's not so much that I'm interested in the task that I'm doing. My interest lies in the outcome of the whole production line's purpose, which is to give somebody their hearing back. Like I live for these activation videos that I see, where these people get these cochlear implants put in, and then after a while they have to go back in to have it activated, and then now they're hearing for the first time with this device, and to see their face light up, I've seen people come to tears. It brings me to tears just to watch, and knowing that I had a small part in that. That's what gets me to focus on this job, is that. Or like when it came to the dogs, seeing a completely unsocialized, either fearful or aggressive dog return back to a normal calm state, that is what became addictive to me, the rehabilitation of the mind. That speaks to me very deeply. I like to see positive development in everyone and everything. I like to see improvement, even if it's just the smallest improvement. I try to do that with myself. I guess this little book might help a bit because it's day-by-day thoughts. Hopefully these will accumulate over the course of a year to help improve me in a way, but you know, whatever. Most of these things that see, the problem with this book, going day by day, is it's called The Daily Laws. And the guy that wrote this book, he's sourcing a lot of these ideas out of the individual books that I already have. So it's like I'll read a page and it'll say a certain thing, like today was time, and what it talked about, you know, in terms of valuing your time and all that stuff. He already kind of touched that in his book called Mastery. I have that whole book. So it's almost like this is the kind of things I already know. And because I've read that book several times already, over and over. I've read that book. I've read all his books over and over again. So this is kind of stuff I already know. So it's kind of hard to find it fresh and exciting again. I'm kind of used to it. I'm kind of used to this information because I've kind of incorporated it into the way I think to a certain degree. I could probably do that better and more. But I'm always thinking of this stuff. So I'm trying to make it a little bit more fresh for the video, but who knows how it's coming off? I don't know. That's why I try to come up with my own examples and my own information when it comes to the daily law I just read. And today's law was time. And speaking of, my time with this video is almost over. Just got off the freeway, pulling into work. Another successful trip. No incidences, no hiccups. That's pretty much it. So I guess as we come to a close, don't waste any time with anything. You know, when it comes to your personal relationships, if there's something unsaid that you're holding back on, don't waste time. Do it. Just say it. You know, when it comes to your job, you know, this is there's a saying, it's almost like a snitch policy. You know, see something, say something. But there's good intention behind it. You know, if there's a flaw or if there's something we can improve, if you see it, say it. You know, bring it to someone's attention. Hey, you know, maybe it might be a little better if we do this. So it's not necessarily a snitch policy, but it does kind of sound that way. See something, say something. Like, ooh, I saw them do something wrong. Mattel. It's not just that, but it sounds funny. But yeah, that's part of Kaizen and continuous improvement. If you see something, say something. Look, we could be doing this better. I've been thinking this, so maybe we should try this. Bring it up to somebody. Bring it up to your boss. You know, create a small what is it? Oh, there's a name for it where you get a bunch of trusted minds together to kind of kick around ideas. I forget what the phrase is. I'll think of it. Darn it. But anyways, don't waste time. It's the only thing you have that you spend that you will never get back. Carpe diem. Let's go to work.